All right. So our December Climate Action Plan Committee meeting come to order. And our first item on the agenda is to accept the meetings from the last meeting, the November 16th, 2023. If there's no edits or amendments to that, we can put them on file. We're good. All right. So I was hoping Mary Ann would be here. And maybe she'll walk in like really dramatically at this moment. In the meantime, I'm gonna vamp a little bit in case that she does walk through the door any second. Vamp a little, like I'm not gonna dive right in. I'm going to toe tap, tape, yeah. We don't have it officially on the agenda, but we didn't want the moment to pass. I think everybody, hopefully everybody has seen the announcement that one of our own was honored quite significantly in the past month. You may have seen it on a online newspaper, for example. Yeah. Not sure, not yours. Somebody might have sent this out. So Hank Half was awarded one of the 17th annual Lead by Example Awards presented by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, which annually recognizes outstanding decarbonization, clean energy, and other environmental efforts among Commonwealth agencies, public colleges, universities, municipalities, and individuals. Just to give you context, there were 3 categories. There was municipal, and there were 2 municipalities that were awarded. There were state entities, and 3 state entities were awarded. Perfect timing. I was vamping a little bit, slowing down a bit. And there were just 2 individuals who were given this award. So one was Suzanne Wood, who's Associate Director of Sustainability at UMass Chan Medical School. And the other is Hank Half, our Director of Building Design and Construction. And I just want to read a little blurb about Hank, because it's a nice summary. It says Hank Half, the town of Needham's Director of Building Design and Construction, has gone above and beyond his job responsibilities to advance the town's climate and sustainability goals, often volunteering beyond the scope of his job to do so. He volunteered to lead the town's solar development committee, for example, and oversaw development of a 3-megawatt facility on a former landfill. He also has been a lead advocate in electrifying the municipal fleet, assisted in managing the installation of EV chargers throughout the town, and acts as staff liaison to the town's Climate Action Planning Committee, allowing him to provide valuable insight as the town develops its climate goals. So I think that's phenomenal that he was recognized. I've only known Hank for a few years. I knew him by reputation before this committee, but I've known him now working, and he is dedicated. He's all in, always has been all in on sustainability, all the way back to his days at Williams out near North Adams. And has really walked the walk, talked the talk. He's been the leader in town, really pushing forward for many years. So I'm honored to have met him and to have worked with him. I think Needham was so lucky to have somebody like Hank leading from within. So congratulations, Hank. That's quite an honor.
Why, thank you. And all of you are the leaders. I'm just the best supporting actor. That's all.
So I hardly think that is the only role that you have, because supporting actor suggests that you are not your leader on your own, and that would be absolutely incorrect, Hank. You know that. And we are grateful that you've been in Needham, that you have been the voice that's not been a quiet voice, but's been persistent, which has been the important part of it. And I think about Needham and think that for so many years people said Needham isn't a green community, Needham hasn't done this, Needham hasn't done that. But the answer is Hank was making us do things all along. And I kept saying, we keep accomplishing things despite going for these other statuses, because doing the work has really been important to us. And the reason it's been important is because Hank insisted to everybody that it had to get done. And I'm grateful. Thank you, Hank.
Thank you, Marianne. And with that, I think we need to introduce Gabby.
Yes.
Because now you have another team member here.
Absolutely.
Would you like to do the honors, Hank?
Well, Cecilia, you did the, I did not sit on the panel, so I'll pass it off to Cecilia.
Yeah, so everyone, new face at the table. This is Gabby. She will be our sustainability manager starting on Monday. But she generously decided to come to this meeting in advance since we knew we wouldn't have another one for January. She comes from the private sector doing very similar work on the other side of the table. So now she'll be jumping on board to help us. I personally am extremely excited. I think we all have a laundry list of items, ideas for her. But yeah, if you want to say a little something.
Yeah,
Give 'em a spot.
sure. Yeah, thanks for the warm welcome. I appreciate it. Like Cecilia said, I'm from Massachusetts. I'm from Bedford originally. Live in Stoughton now with my partner, and my background is in environmental studies and in particular environmental policy. I've worked for nonprofits. I've worked on the state side a little bit, and most recently I've worked in the private sector for an environmental consulting firm. So I've had some great experience working with communities on long range plans around resiliency, sustainability. So yeah, I'm excited to join the team. I've heard really wonderful things about what's already happening in Needham. So looking forward to getting up to speed and helping to support you folks. Great, welcome.
It might be helpful for her to go around and everyone introduce themselves.
I love that. I would
Yeah.
love to hear names.
Why don't we start right behind you, Paul? Paul's one of the volunteers on the Climate Action Plan Committee.
I'm Cameron Dorr. I also have a history in environmental science, and I'm new to Needham. So I'm just here to listen and see what's going on with the town of Needham. I thought this was open to the public.
It is.
Welcome.
We always like guests.
I work at Takeda, and I work with the environmental health and safety department there.
Don't roll your eyes when you say that. I was in.
I'm a writer. So yes, you write.
He is the favorite. We met during your interview, but I'm Nick Hill again. I appreciate, I saw you at the select board meeting.
Oh, I actually wasn't.
No, not yet.
I'm going to the one next week.
Soon.
Soon.
Yeah,
Right.
next week.
I thought I recognized. Okay, good.
No,
Yeah.
not yet.
Not yet.
Good.
I'm checking to on this.
Nice to meet you.
We met, I'm Cecilia Sinchick. I'm the, one of the town liaisons for the Climate Action Plan Committee and the Assistant Finance Director.
Artie Crocker, I'm on the planning board in town and certainly on this committee as all of us to make sure we're better tomorrow than we are today as far as the environment. So thank you for being here.
Marianne Cooley on the select board. And I know that Horsley Witten is really bummed that you're not there, and we are really excited that you're here. So it's a good thing.
Appreciate it.
We have Hank online. Rachel? You're.
Oh, hi. Sorry I can't be there in person this month. Great to meet you. So happy to have you on board. My name is Rachel Bright, and I'm also one of the volunteers on the Action Committee. And I think there's just so much great opportunity. It's just great to have someone to support the team and really carry things forward. Nice to meet you.
Great. And I'm Stephen Prout, and I'm the chair of this committee, and thrilled that you're here. It's like last day of Hanukkah present, or early Christmas present.
And I'm Catherine Copley, I'm the
Catherine.
administrative specialist for the Building Design and Construction Department.
It's just really, because it's been the past year and a half on the committee, and even long before that. It's been, when we get sustainability, you know, so.
Yes.
And so Gabby, on Monday, Catherine will show you where your seat is. You'll be in our suite, and I can load you up. Unfortunately, I'm going to be off at a meeting most of the day, but I'll leave plenty of books on your desk.
Sounds good.
Have you been given a draft of our climate action roadmap
I
yet?
haven't,
You
no.
might have to
I'm,
make that happen.
so I'm off the next 2 weeks, but tomorrow I'm spending the day compiling all the information for you, so
Oh,
it'll be waiting for you.
thank I appreciate that.
The good news, I think the draft is gonna be in our online materials for this meeting, but that doesn't get posted till, no, it's already posted, right?
Not the material,
Not the material.
but I've got a copy here, so.
Okay.
I can give that to her.
That'd be great.
So Gabby, what's the last name?
Queenan, Queenan. And I don't have an email address yet.
But she will get one. She has to actually start first,
Yeah.
right? So
You can like guess
this
what
is
it'll
the
be.
pre-start, and we're grateful for it.
So, welcome. So now we're gonna get down into business. So our next next item is gonna be climate action roadmap discussion. Before we dive into the actual, the roadmap itself, at the last meeting, there was a motion to empower me to send a note to the select board and town manager, letting them know what our priorities are for 2025 that have any fiscal or potential fiscal impacts. And so I'll share the letter that was sent to the select board. Do you want to flip that over, Hank, please?
I was gonna say, I think.
This
everyone-
memo?
He received it, right? But-
Hopefully everybody
Yes.
has everybody received it?
But Gabby won't have seen it.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, let me reshare.
And it also went out to the select board, so it was in the select board packet.
It was in
as
the
well.
packet as well, so it's
Yeah.
public. Okay, great. So this is what was sent. I'll just scroll down, Hank, to the most urgent items section. So, great news. A check mark on number one right there. And so these were the priorities that we sent last year, and they, I believe, are still the most pressing ones. So this is what was underscored for the select board: hiring a sustainability manager, adopting the specialized code, another check mark this year already done. We need to implement it next year. Designing and implementing a municipal electricity aggregation program, that's well underway. We're in the public comment period now for that. And then updating zoning and permitting bylaws to encourage installation of solar. And Artie was telling me a moment ago that we're in pretty good shape.
We're in pretty good shape. The next meeting is Tuesday, and we'll be 9 and 9. That's kind of our,
Okay.
maybe close to 100% shape then.
And then,
Where we want to start going to the public we've been talking about.
so my understanding is the next step, the planning board needs to vote on language.
Mhm.
And then it goes to public comment.
Yeah, and that's exactly what'll happen. Yeah.
Okay.
When,
I think
Yeah,
we
first
probably
thing
do the back and forth with sending it to the select board to
Yeah.
send it back to you, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, there'll be a little,
So we talked about it in a
Yeah,
couple of places.
yeah, there'll be a little spice.
Mhm.
So really strong progress, which is exciting.
oh, but that goes to town meeting, right?
That eventually
Yes,
does go.
zoning will need to go.
Yeah. And so if
And
we,
it will, because it's zoning and it doesn't have to do with housing, it will
Two-thirds.
need a
Two-thirds
two-thirds majority.
2/3 majority.
Yep.
So we have several other items that bubbled up in our discussion last month that we thought might have a fiscal component. Now, just to clarify, because we're gonna be talking tonight about what we think our priorities are, any new priorities we need to add. We are only focusing on the fiscal implications. So these were the 5 major ones. One was installing EV charging stations and priority parking locations, which is continuing what we've been doing and what's Hank's been leading in the municipal lots. Number 2 was creating and adopting an EV first policy for town-owned and leased vehicles. I'll get back to that in a moment. 3 was conducting a baseline tree inventory to map and track tree canopies and identify heat islands and the like. 4 was allocating additional resources and infrastructure for Needham's community food waste recycling program, which every time I go has a line. There's usually like 2 or 3 cars doing that. And then strengthening existing emergency response plans to include strategies and procedures to address the impacts of climate change. And I think this resonates strongly given what happened on August 8th this year with the significant rain event in town. So getting back to the EV first policy. So if you go to the second page, Hank, we didn't cover this in the last meeting, but just a reminder, DOER has a new Climate Leader Communities grant program that they've just announced. And they're listing some criteria that is evolved from the existing green communities criteria. And one of the new items, and probably one of the only items, at least in my cursory review, that we have not done is an EV first policy. We may have components of it, but it may need to be formalized. And so that was the reason why we put that one forth. And then the T1, I'm sorry. I'm missing something here. Oh, the installing the EV charging stations was identified as an enabling action that can really help accelerate the broader town adoption, not just municipal fleets, but private fleets as well. And then we also asked specifically that the town adequately fund the Office of the Sustainability Manager for the coming year to support outreach. And the statement was that given that roughly 97% of our greenhouse gas emissions are from public and commercial sectors, sustained community outreach will be essential for the town to hit those emissions targets. And so while we might be able to fund some of the activity through grants going forward, you know, there's certainly, for example, the green municipal aggregation, there's funding built into that model to help support that outreach. There's other components of the outreach campaign that we want to make sure that the sustainability manager can accomplish in the first year. That was the communication. Any comments or questions about that?
And we're not at the point of identifying, you know, what the cost of an EV first. I didn't think we were.
I don't think I mean, there's like we go from like what might be done to an
Right.
implementation plan and feasibility study if you need one. These are relatively, I'm guessing, smaller ticket items, but not negligible.
Not negligible.
Not in the budget.
Well,
Necessarily.
and I think the goal is to ensure that they stay in the budget through the budget process.
Right.
So they're currently in there, we just need them to stay in there, so.
Steve, just confirmed that the EV first policy, that's just looking at that as a first
We have to
possibility.
create one.
First possibility. It doesn't mean it has to be, just means that that's the first option is looking at EV. For example, heavy trucks. I mean, the options aren't necessarily gonna be
Right, so
right for
like
everyone.
Green Communities just came out today with an announcement saying that they're delaying police cruisers till 2026. That they're exempt from the EV first rule. And so that reflects the supply chain shortages that are making it very difficult to find hybrid police cars. So there's always when it's feasible, and feasibility is not just market availability, it's also financial. Yeah, if it's gonna cost you an extra $30,000 to get that hybrid, you don't have to do it. That's what the Green Communities have announced. And so there are a lot of safety measures in the policy to ensure that they're not pushing people into financial decisions that can't be made, or you just can't procure any vehicle.
Or something that's not sustainable. As far as financial goes.
Are there sample policies that are available?
Yeah, Framingham has one, and Melrose are two that I've seen that
So
are very
these
similar.
communities have adopted them, but it's not that one came from.
Not from DOER, no. And I think they give two or three
Wellesley,
versions that you can
drafted
go.
one. Oh.
Wellesley has one?
Wellesley drafted one. I saw it at a meeting, the Department of Public Works last week. I know, took a look at it. None of their materials are online in Wellesley, so I don't know what it says, but the board
We
looked
can
at it.
probably get it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can probably get it.
All right, so if no comments on that,
Well,
Yeah.
we have money going in for EV charging, right?
So there is some money related to EV charging. There is some money related to the level 3 charger.
Yeah.
As I said, really, there's some money for all of these. The question is keeping it in the budget.
all right. So,
Well, Hank and Cecilia have any other comments from
Well,
in conversations?
I think part of the argument in favor of these is that the town last year earned roughly $950,000 from the RTS solar. And so I look at it as reinvesting some of that money into other sustainable projects.
Exactly.
Very good.
All right. So our next item is actually to dive into the climate action plan itself. We can do this in a couple of ways if people have a strong opinion about it. I think there's general comments about the climate action plan because we do. This is not the final one. We're going to take some feedback to the consultant in January. Changes need to be minor if we're going to have them actually implement the changes. So we're not looking for like new sections, new pages, redesign. It's more wording, or we forgot this very important item. We should put it in there, squeeze it in there somewhere. That's the sort of level of editing I think we'll be able to do within the context of the existing budget. But the other component is actually going through the plan one more time and identifying if there's anything that we want to call out as a priority that may not have had a fiscal impact, or we didn't think didn't raise up last month. Do you guys have a strong opinion? Do you want to go more general first, or do you want to go through the actual list of actions?
I think a general would be good, and then also at some point during the discussion, we can touch on the timeline in terms of when we present the draft to the public and what our process is on that.
Precisely. I think that's a good way to wrap this conversation up. We are bringing this to the select board on Tuesday. How long do we have at that meeting, Marianne? Do you know?
I don't know.
Okay.
I haven't seen the full agenda yet, so.
Okay.
Much too.
No.
Conciseness is always a virtue.
Is it? Okay. I will assume that you've read the plan and I get there and every member will have read the plan. We don't have to talk through it as well. Is there any section that anybody has comments on, or do you want to go page by page? I know you've already sent a lot of comments in, and those were already incorporated into this draft. So maybe the most efficient way would be if somebody has a specific section that they feel like we really need to talk about. I do know there's one graph that I'm very unhappy with still. And it's the graph on what page is that?
Page 12.
Page 12.
Does this include the executive summary thing that we had talked about last time for, I didn't see that, or is it in there? Remember we had talked about for people who are only gonna read 14 pages?
Oh, no, so that I envision being a separate artifact that we pull out, not directly in here. And that would be beyond the scope of what KLA is delivering to us. So this document and its components are what KLA is contracted to do. So no new sections or pages we can get in under the existing budget.
Do
unless
we
write.
own the graphics on this? So if we want to create a one pager, let's say with the thing that models the town common.
We will get the art files. So we will get the,
But we'll own them and have the right to.
that is my understanding, that these icons were created for us.
Okay.
So it's a design language, it's a palette, it's an icon. The logo,
For the public, the summary page is
Yeah.
gonna be really important.
right?
A lot of people aren't gonna read this.
So, Hank is slowly going through it. Is anything jumping out as something we want to dig in on for this? Or are you feeling very good about this and looking forward to bringing it to the public?
I'm happy with it. I mean, you and I have been more involved in the weeds on this,
Back
but
and forth on it.
I like how it's evolved, and I think it's done a good job, and especially the last push of minimizing it.
Yeah. This, I will point out, this is one of the pages that I still struggle with. And there was this spread in particular, if I could point out a few things that I find a little bit complicated. One is that you're kind of tricked into thinking that these colors are all talking about the same exact things, and it's not until you start digging in that you realize that red is commercial building down here. But it's eliminate gas leaks here. And this light blue here is private transportation, but not public transportation. So there's a correlation there. Solid waste is green at least throughout. But the dark blue is electrified buildings here, but not all buildings, only residential buildings. So there's just like some inconsistencies, and I feel like the more that type of mental burden is put on the reader, the more likely this is just gonna kind of go over them.
Yeah.
And especially when you can start to think about each of these being potentially a themed campaign. You know, I think we should be consistent in those colors somehow. You know, I don't know how to do that. It might just be, we need to.
Just shift them, and even if you did something like with the buildings, keep them both the dark blue, but one has a pattern on it or something.
Could be,
Cause
or it could be textures or something else.
something that,
Yeah.
but I think it's a very good point about
Maybe
Mapping.
we just combine residential and commercial buildings together in one of those stripes instead of having multiple stripes. So instead of two colors, maybe these things are together. These are all your buildings. And then you have transportation. Yeah, I don't know. But I feel like it
don't
needs
think
to,
most people care, you know, at this level, difference between businesses and you know, we state elsewhere the breakout between commercial, residential.
they might care, right? Yeah, that's what you're saying.
No, I'm saying we have that,
Elsewhere.
the chart elsewhere, don't we? A couple of pages back.
Oh, yes, we do. On page,
The
11,
Marjan chat.
the motion, yes.
Yes.
Page
I
11.
wanted to say dark history.
Yeah, so we do have them broken
Yeah.
out separately here.
And the benefits of having it broken down, like for example, in transportation, if a person can read a graph, they can see that most of the problems in transportation are related to the average citizen and not the town. And if they look at the buildings, they see it's actually more of a mix, but still, the biggest burden is in residential, and the town is significant. So if you keep it broken up, maybe people can see their level of responsibility in emissions. If you combine them, they won't know.
That's a good
But I
point.
guess my thought is if we're looking at the slope to 2050.
Yeah,
They kind of mirror each other, so, or we do a different.
Well, I think it's important not to combine them. I mean, as Stephen is saying, though, there's the coloring issue between one page and the next, between the key at the bottom and the key in the middle. I mean, so that has to be addressed, but I don't think we should combine them.
Yeah.
I think it's important to keep it separate, just whether it be a different shade of the darker blue, as you're saying, someone said a pattern in there or something, just to make sure that element is staying in place, but not confusing.
So before we go too deep into this, because I don't think we're gonna solve it on the designers. If, Hank, if you go to the next spread, just remember these things right now, just look at those for a second. And now we have completely different icons, which are for pretty much the same buckets. And that was the other thing that I just it just seemed like two different designers were working on this at the same time. And again, I think we're gonna just create extra confusion on this, so. More than anything, that's one thing that I think we should probably fix. I kept going through the list of the actions and I couldn't think of big actions that we're missing. There was one, and we can debate it. And that is whether or not the town should adopt a social cost of carbon in its financial decision.
Oh, yeah.
Because I have been talking with members of the finance committee about this, and there's some interest in exploring it further. But is it something that we should be thinking about? It kind of goes into the governance.
It would be,
Bucket.
it would be a governance action, and we mention it sort of buried in the text here, so.
It's implicit in the document.
Don't we,
It's actually,
it's mentioned
it's,
in one
yeah,
of the little boxes.
well, it's on that spread, the previous spread
Yeah.
we were just on.
Did you say another town had done it and articulated it in the document?
Social cost of carbon. There are many places that have done it. Massachusetts has not done it. I don't know if any Massachusetts cities or towns have done it. there are some states that have done it. The federal government has now come out with 191 as its social cost of carbon figure. Up, well, it was up from a provisional 51, actually, when the Biden administration. came back.
It was up from 6.
Six, yeah.
6 or 7.
And then back to Obama, it was 40. So. So one of the questions is, we do adopt a social cost of carbon, is which value do we put on it? What methodology do we put on it? How stable is that value, that number?
But as an action item, we don't, we can just even to put that as a, move towards
I'm
adopting a
comfortable if
social.
you add something that says consider whether. I mean, at least that keeps it within the plan. It's there.
Right. We're not establishing it in the plan.
Right.
Evaluate appropriate values for a social
Right.
cost of.
Yeah, okay.
Makes sense.
So we could add that into the governance section. There are some other nitpicky things that I came up with as I went through, but I don't think we need to go through all of them.
Just on page 11, I think in the graphic, the bottom, the total metric tons of carbon
Doesn't equal the,
doesn't work, grab in the text, it's a different number.
yeah, different, you're right. Up in the top paragraph, right?
No.
343, 363, and then 342, 363.
On the page 12 graph though, I know, as I'm looking at it, we high impact strategies, electronic transportation, and it seems like it all goes down. It's intuitively, as someone, an unfamiliar person reading this, we talking about what? Because it looks, you can arrive at a wrong conclusion reading this graph.
So could you give us an example of how that might be improved?
Yeah, one thought is, do we try using bar graphs and just sort of, rather than slope, several stacked graphs? Highlighting 21, 20, and 2050, right? 21, 2030, and 2050. Right? And as we tell the story, we just show levels going down, but sort of having it all together. I think the slope is, something's confusing about it. It's not working.
So I like the idea that,
We
we're
get to
going
zero.
to zero and
A bar
everything.
graph would do that too, but show a better component, like here's a mix in 2030, here's now a new mix.
Is it too late to change the artwork or is it still? on
That's a
the
good
table?
question.
I think we can get them to work on this graph. It's problematic. And, we could maybe brainstorm when we're ready to engage with them on different ways of presenting the information.
Did we extend their contract with the extra amount, or is that still on discussion?
Cecilia's got,
I'm going through it.
yeah, she was waiting for me to respond.
The other thing, regardless of the graph, maybe the icons should be, I guess they are kind of done by weight, aren't they? Well, starting transportation and buildings are about the same amount. Is that the intent, that the biggest high impact, those are your biggest
Up top is what you're saying.
on the right-hand page?
Yeah, I think they restacked those after the
Yeah.
last round to make the highest impact one.
Okay, yeah.
Right.
All right. So any other sections that anybody was looking through and felt that isn't really hitting? I feel like on average, we're nitpicking with some of the things at this point.
Overall, this is a win.
I think this is a
Yeah.
very strong draft. Okay. So why don't we then switch into our meaty topic? We've also indicated that if you look at the, so Hank, if we go to page 14, which is the start of the action plan. As we looked through this last time, we identified a lot of these which were already in progress. And so the icons that they use here are not completely accurate. That's another fix we had to go through. We're gonna have to go through and identify. So we went through this activity last time and we focused on just the fiscal impacts. So I'd like to pass through it again and we can take candidates for prioritization in fiscal 25. And see if there's any difference from what we've already communicated to the select board. So Hank, it might be easiest if we zoom in on one page on the left. Are you able to do that?
Page 14.
There we go.
So 1.1A is already in flight. 1.2C is in flight. Is there anything else here that we feel like the town should be focusing on in the coming year?
How feasible is 1.2A? I mean, we've got various people have done rough analyses. Is it something that, to have over the next 6 to 9 months to catalog of sites that could then be drilled in further? And specifically, since this is public property.
Yeah, I think that the first target that has been discussed would be the Newman parking lot, Newman Elementary School parking lot. The high school parking lot was another one, but the conflict with the 4th of July fireworks seems to take that off the table each time.
Right.
What about the water pumping station? Is that?
The pine forest that's dying. in that
Yeah.
area.
Yeah,
It's
I
my
think
thought-
that's, I think that one could certainly be on the table. I think
There's,
if Gabby knows how to do the carbon analysis of that, that's the one piece that I don't have, and I'll share the summer research study that was done a couple of years ago about how to potentially make that facility, which is the second largest user of electrical energy in town, of town buildings, how to make it net zero. And that would be a very interesting carbon analysis, I think.
so I think we've identified, we're probably on an ad hoc basis, identified a lot of sites, and if we just get a list going, that might be a good.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll put 1.2A as a candidate for us to vote on later.
And it's a relatively easy hit since a lot of the legwork has been done.
Okay. Any other candidates from
Or
this
saving
section?
it for the 2 years away would be. So it's over.
So any other candidates from this section?
Does 1.1 go with 1.1A in the sense that if we're gonna, I mean, I don't know when the aggregation program will actually be implemented, but does the outreach program need to follow quickly and carefully in line with that? And should we be working on that within the next year? Or is the timing not right yet?
I think the timing is not right yet.
The consultant will be doing that. I think my understanding is the general, once it gets approved by DPU or the word is nigh, then they crank up.
Right.
I think they said they'd give cookies out too.
Yeah, so that will be, I mean, it's all tied to that, but we're probably at least
A year
a
out,
year out.
if we're lucky.
Anything else?
Well, when we go through, currently, as you know, we're replacing the rooftop units at Elliott, and that'll happen next summer. The rooftop units at Broadmeadow will follow. There's a potential grant that we might go after to look at geothermal as an option for transitioning away from the natural gas boilers because next on the agenda for Elliott would be to replace the old 22-year-old boilers with high efficiency gas boilers, but it would not eliminate the gas. And it'd be interesting to understand what the total cost of that would be.
So is there a candidate item? I think you might have jumped down to the net zero buildings.
2.2B is sort of. I mean, that's.
Oh, okay. Well, network geothermal
Network
is
is
a
a
little different.
separate animal.
Yeah, I don't think that's the same. That's like the heat pilots. That doesn't feel like they're ready for us. We're ready for them.
I think we need to see how Framingham is doing on their front.
So why don't we scroll down to the net zero buildings? What you were talking, I thought sounded like BU 1.1.C.
Hold on.
That's not necessarily what you were saying.
With PDF files, it's sometimes easier to use the elevators than it is to start scrolling with a mouse. Because it jumps pages.
Yeah.
There we go. So 1.1.A is in flight. There are two others that were identified, at least in this draft, as higher priorities. One is outreach campaign around mass save incentives. That actually is probably where the biggest bang for the buck is, to be honest.
So the interesting thing about commercial solar is commercial businesses seem that they have a very tight time frame on how they look at profitability. Like, am I making money in a year on it? Like, it's a very short time frame. So a commercial case may be a way of taking that concern off the table, where it puts the finances back onto back on the property taxes to some extent. So that may be a way for a lot of commercial businesses to go solar without it directly coming out of their pocket immediately, or them worrying about the payback.
Or to electrify.
What's that?
Or just any, electrification in general, and there's a lot of good stuff done with commercial phase.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not personally familiar with commercial pace and what it takes to enable that for town businesses. Is it
I think it require, Needham has to adopt it. I don't know if it's requires a town meeting vote. But you have to.
There's a step to opt into the program.
You have to opt into PACE, and there's relatively, I think, maybe 20 or 30 towns in the Commonwealth that have.
Yeah, it was in Rhode Island, I think, before Mass.
But I saw a presentation on it. I've seen a couple, and it's got a lot of good potential for these, longer term, higher capital.
Is it more about the existing built environment, or is it about new buildings?
I think they can do it with either. It's basically saying these improvements go with the property. And so then you're taking it off the balance sheet, you're taking it off of, so if you've got somebody who's holding a building and building it on spec or something, it becomes an assessment that goes with the property.
Yeah, it's just part of the taxes at that point. Yeah, just part of the property taxes.
And so it probably would require.
It sounds like a town.
It's a town meeting and zoning type of thing, and that's a research. And that's the.
I would have said if we don't have enough information.
It's
here
probably
to
a
make
question mark.
decision.
Yeah, it's too soon.
I think we let Gabby get into her role, and then at some point we'll come back and look at this once we know.
And Mass Development has some materials on that.
Yeah.
And we'll give her.
Yeah.
Christmas morning.
Yeah.
All right, so
I think the earlier question is Hank's question that he raised, which is how do we get a framework in place in town for evaluating when we need to upgrade older boilers for what we're going to do?
Is it just boilers or is it
Well,
more broad?
I could state it more broadly, I guess. I think that was an area that Joe might have some expertise to give us on, and I don't know what he would say about that, but I think that's.
Like Howard or
Our
Counselor?
Joe Higgins,
Joe
yeah.
Higgins, I have read 1.1C. I wasn't part, obviously, who drafted the language here, but it seems to me to be like develop the sustainable building guidelines that Wellesley has, but for Needham. That's how I read that.
Hmm.
And so Bob, it's new construction and it's existing renovations.
And 1.1C kind of goes back, I think, at our opening meeting when Hank, you were saying that currently the town is focused on cost impact and we're not, first cost impact rather than even the life cycle costs. And I think which if we adopt 1.1C, then suddenly doing a hybrid heat pump rooftop unit or something it's no longer just a cost calculation.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Pollard School renovation or ad reno, which we're just embarking on. I don't know if you all know that we were invited by the MSBA into their program for the Pollard School, and we're just embarking upon the eligibility phase. It's potentially a 7-year sequence of operation, but during that process, if we establish from day one that the town is interested in a net zero building, that becomes part of the basic program. And once that's accepted by MSBA, they help in terms of reimbursement associated with that. Since we are already in the specialized opt-in code, we're most of the way there to potentially gain the additional 3 incentive points, 3% incentive points. And each one of those incentive points is potentially 1% would be what, $3 million?
Real money.
Yeah. So it and Marianne, as we had discussed, after having input from Doran Whittier, they are seeing in these projects that with the IRA reimbursement money and with the MSBA reimbursement money and with the state reimbursement money, that a net zero building can be cost positive from day one.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
So that's your design point, as I understand it?
yes. So when we put together the program, if we say that is our goal, that's a very important goal for the PBBC to hear, because that then sets the standard.
Yeah. So this one does seem to me to be worth prioritizing. It takes some time to get there.
Which one?
The 1.1C.
Yeah.
That would be the one that I would probably pick from this. In addition to the 1.2B, which is the outreach campaign.
Would you take the green bullet off of 1.1B since
I would. Yeah, I don't think we know about it.
we don't, yeah. All right. If pressed, we can't really explain 1.1B at the
Yeah.
moment.
All right, why don't we go to the next page or into transportation? And so a lot of really lofty ideas in here. We have the two that we've got identified by the KLA were the EV charging stations and then an EV first policy. I do think those are the two top ones personally. If I was going to add anything, it would be probably again outreach 1.1B.
Yeah, okay.
everything under 2.1 feels very, very long, like 5-year, 10-year.
I would be, I mean, 1.1 B is a good thing. How many priority points, I guess, do we want to?
Well, I think right now we're just identifying candidates and then
Yeah, yeah.
we'll probably have to do some voting.
Yeah, because we can't say, well,
2.2C goes back to MBTA communities. I mean,
2 point,
that maybe gets the sunburst thing on it. 2.2C at the bottom.
local zone, oh, yeah,
Oh,
yeah, so that is, in flight.
yeah,
Yeah, I would have said, by the way, I'm thinking, if KLA has any succinct description of why they green starred enable commercial pace, blah, 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 that they can send our way so we can understand that more, I'd be happy to read it.
It was a little seat of the pants, to be
Oh,
frank.
okay,
Yeah,
all
it
right.
was
I
a,
think it was also something that was within that group. Well, I know one of the members of Joe Higgins's working group was very.
Pushing for that.
Yeah,
So we just don't know what it means.
Well, we don't know how, well, we
Right.
don't know what we.
how you, what
Yeah,
it
we
takes.
don't know what we need to do for the town to make sure it's implemented.
Right.
What it is the buildings borrowing the money. Then
But
the,
what
then
the
repayment,
enabling
yeah,
mechanism
repayment goes
is.
back onto the tax, the
Right.
tax bill.
Mass Development has some good resources on it, but
Okay,
all right,
fine.
so I think we're out of transportation into
Yep.
natural resources and waste. And on this one, we had communicated NA 1.1.A as a potential. I believe this was already in flight. Is that incorrect?
yeah,
Well, the answer is, we're planning to do a tree summit.
and there's also money for tree survey.
Tree survey.
Survey, then summit.
So is the tree survey funded
Yep,
and
that's in the budget.
contracted?
No, it's in the budget, right? For FY 25.
Okay,
So it's one of the things that was on the memo.
yes, on the memo, right, okay. Feel
So
like,
11C there. 11A and 11C are the two things.
Right.
are we saying that 11A is a priority for this year? Or is this tree summit just kicking off a long
Tree summit
process?
is just kicking off. There's no way they'll kind of complete that.
Okay. But it kicks it off. So we're in effect saying 1.1A is started,
Right.
they're not done.
And 1.1B would have been in flight.
Yeah. Yeah,
Hmm.
all right. So we have some
We can
more,
all still dream.
yes,
could have been a contender.
Keep your fingers crossed.
a rabbit could come out of that.
That one has never been dead when it's dead. We'll see.
So we don't know anything further about it, nothing?
It's-
Nothing new.
no, yeah. All right, so natural resources waste, next page. Anything here, candidate?
Huh. 1.2.D, is that their leaf blowers?
I believe, yes, the citizens group is working on that.
Yes.
Which one are we
1.2.D. NA 1.2.D. There's a citizens group working on proposed ordinances. I don't know if it's just leaf blowers or if it's leaf blowers was.
Yeah, I don't know, yeah.
Personally, I'm not keen on
Yes,
fighting that fight right away.
It's
I understand that
someday.
the state hasn't taken it on because they don't actually think they're good alternatives yet.
Yeah, someday.
I have a neighbor who owns a landscaping company, and he has adopted some electrical tools, electric leaf blowers. He says they break down faster than the gas engines, and there's not a good repair network for them. he says he's completely behind the idea. But he doesn't feel like the technology is quite there yet.
How about
And I
anything?
heard that there's a challenge with, you use them, they use up their battery and then you're down, waiting for them to recharge, so they lose efficiency.
Or you're running a generator on the truck to.
Well,
With diesel.
Yeah, that wouldn't work.
No.
Yeah, so I mean, it's complicated, I
Yeah.
think. at the
It
moment.
feels like, at least on the commercial side, we're still a couple years away from parity, at least.
And since most people are using commercial services to do this.
This is why. I
It
don't
also is
feel
the
like
sort
it's
of thing
okay.
that if we star it, it could become a flashpoint that goes out of proportion.
Right,
Well, so here's the thing. That could be complicated, right? I think we have some citizens. Who are on a path where they want to bring this to town meeting. At some point, this crew is gonna have to decide. What's their position and whether this makes sense for the town or not, so.
right.
Yeah, and that's something, if it comes up in public comment on the climate plan. More than happy to listen to them and say, you know.
Right.
Yeah.
What isn't a bad thing, but I'm
Yeah.
saying maybe we don't wanna.
I have been in touch with some of the individuals in that committee group, and I've asked them to talk to some of the landscapers. So my hope is that they will,
Yeah,
and have that conversation.
They can have other, some information from other towns that have actually done this.
Yeah,
I think there are.
Lexington.
Lexington, yeah.
Yeah, Lexington's done it, which is ironically where they have a leaf blower ban that my neighbor's company has had to deal with.
Newton has one too, right?
Newton has a leaf blower ban, but it's more about time of year, time of day.
Right.
So you can't use them like when you're mowing grass, but you can use them when you're blowing
You
leaves.
can, yeah. And I don't think they require it during primary leaf blowing season. It has some
Yeah.
interesting timing in it, like you have to use electric ones during the summer, but in the fall, they don't have that requirement when people are really heavy duty clearing leaves.
Right.
It ends, I think, in September.
Yeah, so they have like a moratorium.
Yeah,
Something like that has some weight to it at least, and then one thing I was gonna bring up, I'm not sure how often we've talked about it, and no, we have something related to sustainable services as far as landscaping and so forth, but what do we have, I mean, this is something that drives me crazy, and that is, we take all our leaves from all our property and just shoot them, so they go somewhere else. Now, as far as other education, as far as other sustainable practices, as far as landscaping, I think there's some mention somewhere about sustainable practices.
Well,
Yeah,
1.2.c, Yeah. which is kind of an outreach
right at the top
candidate
there.
as well. So, I know Green Needham sends out green gardening tips and how to shrink your lawn and how to put in drought resistant and leave your leaves, rake your leaves into your bed.
And it has a lot more importance than people realize.
Oh, agreed.
As far as,
Yeah.
because, I mean, when everything's sucked away from the lawn, that means everything, all the insects, eggs, everything, the butterflies, everything's sucked away from the lawn
Agreed.
when they clean everything up. And it would be nice if that has a little bit of a priority, because I think that does, and part of it has to do with it, if you make people care about what they're doing, then they'll care about their lawn, then they'll care about other things. And it's kind of a cycle of expansion of caring about what's going on. So they don't care about one thing, and then they don't care about another thing. But if we can get them to understand and care about what's happening in the lawn, it'll have other benefits. So maybe we prioritize that.
So we can certainly add that to the bucket of outreach activities that we recommend our sustainability manager consider.
right, consider.
Get a rake.
Lots of good
You're
ideas.
at least 2 hours in the job.
Right.
Almost.
And then the other one that we do have in this section is the 2.2.a, which is additional resources and infrastructure for Needham's Community Food Waste Recycling
Do
Program.
we know what they need? I mean, I don't actually know that Matt has identified specific needs.
We don't.
Does anybody
have a-
know?
I don't have a specific list.
I don't recall having heard from him that there's something that he thinks he's lacking right now.
Is anybody on the natural resource group?
I don't know of anything that actually, Eleanor I think perhaps that's a better connection.
We could reach out to
There's
them.
no here,
Eleanor.
Public Works reports that there is sufficient funding for the program in the 2025 budget request.
There is,
There is sufficient funding.
okay.
Okay.
We don't need to add that one then.
I know we're not gonna put,
Should that actually be identified as an action item? I guess it might be a question.
Remove, you mean?
Yeah, I'm just wondering,
Remove it?
should it be removed? Was it
Or
put
is
here
it
for that?
light? Do we just say,
So here's the thing I remember from Project Drawdown. They have a list of all of the things that contribute the most to carbon emissions. And food waste is like number 1 and number 2.
Okay,
It's right at the top. And it's food waste all along the chain. And then all of the rotting food that creates methane at the end. So I don't know that it's bad to
so
have in
maybe
there.
it's allocate resources and infrastructure as required or as needed or
Allocate.
something like that. Continue to monitor and allocate,
Appropriate resources.
yeah, just something like that.
As
And it's good
opposed
to
to
know that
addition.
we're at the point where, I know that Matt's been trying to be sure that we're doing the right thing and they just got there enough to collect and
Right.
the timing is working with getting them there and all that kind of thing, but.
and I know we're not gonna put this on the list, but I'll throw it out there just so we can talk here, and that is, I don't have a garbage disposal, I haven't had one for years and years, they're a complete waste of resources. It requires energy, water, it goes down the waste stream, as opposed to taking the food waste and recycling it. And that all adds, doing it the way most people do in town, just adds to the waste, adds to the environmental waste. And, you know, again, are we adding to list? I'm not saying we are, but
Well, maybe this is 2.28, it could be recast more generally to increase the percentage, of food waste that gets
Yeah.
composted.
versus,
More generally,
Yeah.
because then you can talk about schools, right, where we, there's a lot of food waste, we can talk about the restaurants, we can talk about private. So maybe that's.
To really increase
Yeah, that would be
Increase
a better,
awareness, resources and infrastructure.
Okay. Resources and infrastructure,
yeah,
to support
And the four Needham's,
reductions in.
I mean, it's
Yeah, okay.
not even
Increase
capital
food.
for, Needham's food waste reduction and recycling efforts. To go beyond the formal program.
I should ask KLA if they have any estimate of what our actual food waste is in town, and, because that would be an interesting metric to have, if we knew how much.
I think there was something in the GHG inventory when we did, a derived value.
Yeah, so,
And we might have talked to, Matt Smith about that.
that'd be interesting to know.
so the only other thing that could be useful, and maybe this is not this year, but the 2.2.C, it just feels like a baseline activity that we would want the school department to do and any other procurement. Or
I would have voted that you don't add that for this year.
So next year,
We can come back to it next year and look at it, yeah.
Which
I
one?
think we need to give her a moment in the job.
fair enough.
Give her a moment in role and
Is that specifically related to food, or is that all?
No,
I think that's
That's
everything.
all
waste.
That's all the waste stream.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's a complicated
Yeah.
audit
Yeah.
and I'm not sure we're ready to undertake that yet or add that to the stack of things we've got.
All right, so let's go down to governance. And 1.1.C is complete.
Yep.
Anything else in here?
So 1.1.B, right, says we're gonna report progress on an annual basis. I'm presuming there's gonna be something we're gonna need to do a year from now.
Well, there's definitely the green communities, plus if we get into the next program. Anything else jumping out here then? This is where we said that if we're gonna evaluate the implementation of a social cost of carbon.
Yeah,
Mhm.
which would be in
It's in
section 2 would be where you put it, since it's a town thing, or would you put it in 1.2?
I'd put it in section 2. Because it's more about municipal operations. All right, so our last section.
I'm sorry, can we make another Starburst somehow for government 1.1C to say completed? Because we have in progress, but I'm
Right.
looking at sustainability person right now, and he's sort of can say done,
The check mark.
check mark.
Yeah.
Well, although this talks about reevaluating capacity needs every 5 years, I don't know. You know, and overseeing the implementation of the CAP,
That's right.
Sure.
those are all
Okay.
activities that are in
Yes.
progress, right?
All right, fine.
Hiring a sustainability was a necessary, manager was a necessary first
Right.
step to making that happen.
By the way, you are hired for life. You're not allowed to.
Yeah.
We completed that step.
No, we believe in personal
We'll never be,
development and
we'll never
professional
be coordinated,
development.
we'll always need you.
Yeah.
I was commenting on checking it off.
No.
I was looking at items like require capital improvement plans to align with the times climate goals and integrate sustainability requirements and standards into procurement policies. So we don't have Cecilia left, but that seems to me like something that she was in fact already thinking about. I just. Where do you think we are on thinking about that? I mean, I think that is something we've been talking about, but I don't know how really it happens.
Well, in the big projects, it starts off with the very initial goals for the project.
Right.
So on the Pollard project, and for, I think, even some of these other, pretty much everything that goes before the PBBC, I think we need to set those standards. But in part, those standards are already set by the opt-in specialized code.
Correct.
And that carries with it a whole series of requirements and standards. What we're not at yet is how to deal with the renovations of existing buildings. And I think that's similar to what residents face when they try to reduce their energy use and transition to electricity. Perhaps every single one of us is going through that same process on our own houses right now. And we know how difficult it can be, but it can be done in steps. And I think the town needs to look at it the same way, to do it in steps.
Okay, and I say leave those alone then for this year, and
So 2.1B wouldn't be a priority, do you think, or we're moving towards it?
right, I think, people are very conscious of the climate goals as they're looking
Yeah.
at what's in the capital improvement plans. But, you know, I guess I'm hesitating over the word require, because I don't know that we're there in all of our thinking yet. We'll get there. But
Probably
it's certainly informing the CIP in a whole bunch of different ways, so.
Yeah, I would tend to agree, because I mean, Hank's already talking, for example, Pollard going to net zero, but that doesn't mean, you know, Project Z that's coming up earlier will be able to have any possibility of meeting, aligning totally with the climate goal.
Well, but it's more than that, right? I mean, so getting the EV first plan in place is
Right.
another slice of this. I mean, we'd have to go look through the CIP to think about where are other slices and how are they not impacted yet
Right.
by something here. And we haven't looked through that, so it probably makes sense to
Defer.
do that work. Yeah.
All right, so resilience and public health is our last section, actually. Feels like something in the 1.1 area ought to be prioritized. I don't know if the floodplain maps are our responsibility, or if that's FEMA or FEMA.
I
think those get updated federally,
I thought they did
and
too.
they already have been.
I thought they did too. But my understanding is that they're woefully out of date, so they haven't been updated recently, and they're,
I thought there was a recent update.
was there?
Do they
Doesn't mean that it's
incorporate-
not
It's
a
over 5
recent
years.
update to something that was still ancient, but I'm pretty sure there was a recent update, so.
Yeah, I think in 2019, there was a resiliency assessment. That DPW did.
For Needham Municipal or private?
I think for Needham Systems, I think it was across the board. But
The 1.2A basically.
Would that include identifying potential flood sites in town? Like, would we be able to look at that and then correlate it to the houses?
I think that that question was answered on August 8th.
August 8th, I was gonna say, yeah, and targeted outreach, Kevin can tell you every neighborhood he's been to.
Yeah.
And it's already been targeted and reached.
Yeah, and I know there was discussion actually about potential purchase of property to create infiltration areas, even to the point of taking low points, demolishing houses and creating wetlands.
Yeah, retention basins.
That was from 2019?
No,
No.
that's been since
Oh,
August
that has been
8th.
seen.
Since
Yeah.
August 8th, yeah.
There is gonna be a working group to talk about wastewater, stormwater. And that will go into some building code language.
So do you think 1.1C is the priority?
Yeah, that's a priority.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure it's necessarily floodplain district stuff. I think
I think it's anywhere.
it could be anywhere
So-
because it's not floodplain.
Yeah,
necessarily
yeah,
floodplain.
great.
Vulnerable areas rather than flood.
Yeah, vulnerable or
Because some of these places are on hills, right?
Mhm.
They're getting so much
Correct.
water from uphill that
Yeah.
they just get 7 feet of water.
I mean, there's one woman, a new construction is built 12 feet from wetlands buffer zone. And the sill is like 8 inches off the ground. The foundation's dropped. And then they said, put the sill, and it's like, so all the water just came right to the base. I mean, she didn't stand a chance.
Yeah.
But there was no hardening of anything that happened.
Right.
And I don't-
That was a new house?
New
Yeah.
construction.
Lost,
Chestnut Street.
lost everything. None of it covered by
Oh, yeah, nothing.
insurance.
Although you can get some insurance. But, yeah, but the issue is like, why are builders building things as if we lived in Arizona?
Because there's a lot of flooding in there.
Well, that's actually true.
A lot of people die in those ravines.
So, but,
Did we have something related to that, the Conservation Commission? Because I mean, there's always kind of the push and pull, people wanna push into the 25 foot no disturb zone. People don't realize how important the wetlands are, and they just push into it, not thinking anything about it until that happens, and then it happens again, then it goes over to other neighbors' houses and so forth. Is there anything in here as far as outreach and more communication related to the importance of the wetlands?
That would be back in the
natural
natural
resource.
Well, it's sort of 1.1A is, local flood protection. That,
That's
You know,
correct, yeah,
floods don't just come from
yeah.
bodies of water, they come from the people uphill.
I would have said we could probably put a starburst actually next to 1.1A.
Yeah, yeah. I
Because
think
there
that's a
has
good
been
idea.
work going on since August
Yeah, that's a
that's
good
targeted,
It's a good idea.
dealing
Yes.
with.
So
Yeah,
as
those
as
are
they
like-
progress.
government is most retail
Yeah,
conversation with EPA.
So, yeah, I've personally had people reach out to me about 1.1C, that they want to see the town
Yeah,
putting some changes in place to help. So I would say that's our probably even more than 1.2.A, because 1.2.A probably is longer term, right? That's when we get the capital projects going.
yeah.
Yeah. But I think, rephrasing away
it
from
doesn't hurt to keep it
floodplain
on
to
1.2A, but.
Yeah,
general flood risk of water vulnerability.
What I'm gonna say about 1.1C is I think it's unlikely that it's going to happen this year.
Would we want to start it, in 2025?
Could be in 2025.
So that's, I don't know,
What about-
maybe I should back up for a second. I'm
Update
assuming
zoning
that,
bylaws to require occupiable spaces and critical building systems. It says in the floodplain district, but it's probably broader than that, to incorporate flood protection measures.
Yeah, this.
But it's gonna be starting. I don't know when, but we're gonna vote on it, right? To do the
What?
working group.
Yeah, we're gonna have a working group,
So working group will work
so
for,
that's what I was gonna say, a year, yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know.
so it's starting now.
so just to make sure I'm clear here, I'm assuming that what we're talking about tonight is gonna feed into a climate action plan vote, probably in the spring, like not now. But at some point, we'll put a vote on what we think the next group of priorities are. That'll feed into the select board's goal setting,
Yeah.
and that will fuel 2025 activities, not 2024.
I think we can also take this as a, we've got those separate sheets that we did in as exercises on some of the items. But we're looking at taking this eventually and, saying, okay, this is a 2025, this is a 26. Internally, that's what the
That's where this might go.
CAPC is going with this in terms of,
Yeah, I think so.
so it's good to know, even on some of these things to say, okay, it's not a 24, it's a.
Right, agreed. Anything else that we're missing here? Communication, education.
So we're gonna,
emergency preparedness.
we're gonna start verse 1.1.8.
Yes,
Okay, so in that, so I was just gonna say, Gabby, so that's something where sustainability coordinator will take a big lead on. And I think some combining that with something related to education of wetlands.
Put that over hand in hand. I mean, do you want to limit it to flood too? Like, I know we talked a little about stormwater.
I think
I think there's linkages across all of those.
that's a good edit. I think adding stormwater, not just flood, and probably drought risk too. I personally don't think that the Northeast is always gonna be able to say we don't have mass
No,
forest
it's gonna
fires.
go both ways.
Right.
Yeah.
We could have a desert here at
Yeah.
some point, so
Didn't we have it like 2 years ago?
literally,
Literally, right,
originally 2022, we
Yeah.
had a
Right.
massive drought and everybody's lawn died,
right,
which decreased the ability of that ground to soak up water.
right,
And it was already limited because it was grass.
yeah.
Good for soil, bad for the environment.
So it didn't rain. So maybe we need to take a look at this language and just tweak it.
Yeah,
I think
I
that'd
think
be a
that's
good
part of
idea.
it.
I think we
that's a
need
really
to.
good idea. It's a lot more important than it's initially seen, initially we're thinking, perhaps.
yeah.
2.1B. I mean, in my view, that's ongoing. Amy is always trying to figure out, and sitting before her, how we're gonna get more people to do emergency alerts, so that is.
How many people are on the emergency alert today? Do you know roughly? Out of
I
the
haven't asked
30,000?
in a while. I think we're over 6,000.
Pretty good.
Isn't that
So-
Michael left?
Michael Lethen just left, actually, and we
Oh.
have, somebody who's been working in the town for him. Hank, do you know who the new emergency manager is? Otherwise, I can find it. Give me just a minute. That just happened this week.
Oh, no, I'm not familiar. It'd be
Okay, just
through the
a minute,
health
I'll-
department, right?
No, please.
Taleb Abdurrahim.
Jaleb Abdul-Karim,
Abdurrahim is our new, emergency
response-
manager.
emergency manager.
And my understanding was that he had been, part of the team. He's been working for the town. Tim just announced that Michael Lethen had left. He's going to an emergency management job at the MBTA. Lord knows they need.
Oh,
good
wow.
emergency managers. Sunbury.
Amen.
He's a talented guy. I'm sure it's a great role for him. Taleb is stepping up to help move our LAPC and EM work forward. Many years of experience in Needham and in Brookline, coordinating and supporting Medical Reserve Corps. Absolutely essential in organizing and arranging logistics for Needham's COVID-19 response. Master's degree in emergency management from Mass Maritime, previous experience in EM and safety roles in merchant marine shipping. So that's his background, but he's been here for a bit, is what I understand. So,
That's great.
okay.
Okay.
And he led his first LAPC meeting this week.
All right. So I think that gets us through the action. So, what I would propose to do is, try to summarize these notes and share them back, and we can use it, sometime after the new year to weigh in on what we think the town's priorities should be after it gets past this first batch, which we've made great progress on.
I'm wondering, sorry about that, if we should ask each of our committee leaders of these subgroups to just take one more lead through their goals. We've now got a little bit of distance from when these were written and see if there's anything that jumps out to them now or feels dated, you know, like it was looked at with some particular lens, like this floodplain map everywhere instead of being written more generally.
So
That
that
might
would
be a
like-
valuable thing.
So each of the chairs of the working groups from last
Right,
fall,
Rachel, yeah, Paul.
do you guys feel like that would be
Artie.
a good step, easy step to take?
I think so. Not adding things, but.
Not
just-
adding things, just sort of relook
Wording.
and see if
Yeah,
it's
no,
written as generally as maybe it should be for that
Yeah.
item.
Right.
Or as broadly, I don't know.
Right, so this,
Depending which
while
way.
not a final document, this is a public document, because I think it's in multiple packets already.
Mhm.
You can share the draft with them and
Yeah.
ask them to go to comment on that section. If they have anything else, that's fine, but that's a good suggestion. So maybe we talk a little bit more about the next month and a half, because what we have in January, or maybe February at the latest, we have to get back to KLA. So we have an end date contract with them, so we want to get to a point where here's all the starbursts, check marks, and et cetera. Here's the draft changes, here's the copy changes we want. Before then, if we feel like we need additional public comment, it would be good to try to schedule it. And I think the last time you and I talked, you had said you wanted to potentially add that into a select board meeting. I will tell you, I have a January 18th reservation at the public library that's vacant. There's no agenda for it right now, but I did ask for it in case we wanted to use that spot. Do you want to think about it?
Kevin, let's talk about that. Yeah, and that might be a question actually to raise for discussion next week too.
And where it goes from your
Yeah,
board, yeah, okay.
yeah.
I think that the challenge
I'm
right
trying to
now,
think, do we need it?
right,
I'm not sure that we need it. But do we want to think about it in terms of part of a rollout? You know, how do we want to think about it really?
socializing it.
Yeah,
mean,
The flip side of it is that right now, I don't think any of the boards want to hear from anybody who doesn't have anything to do with
budgets,
budgets.
right, that's very true,
So,
because the agendas are already full.
right.
Would it be appropriate
Could be
for the
athletic.
CAPC, you know, our next meeting would be probably on or about the 18th of January, that's in a month, to have part of our meeting publicly saying, you know, go through the plan with the public, with the Needham channel, with them, as part of our outreach.
So I think maybe we could do that, but why don't we wait till
Yeah, till the-
Tuesday?
Yeah.
See what the select board says.
Yeah,
We're advisory committees, so it's a little weird for
Right.
us to be leading those.
True.
yeah. Trying to figure out how to make all that work.
Right. Okay, so we'll table everything until Tuesday, and then we can chat about what's next steps.
And I was going to share it with the teachers who are leading the Greater Boston project, but I thought I would wait until after the select board meeting, because I'm encouraging them to read through it and think about topics that they might want to engage on, even if it's assisting in getting it past past annual town meeting in May.
That'd be great.
Great. All right. So that I think gets us through our agenda.
Next meeting is?
So we don't have next meeting scheduled at this point.
That's a good question about the flooding thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know how we have all these tributaries in town, they all run into the Charles, and some of them are decrepit and filled with ticks and the bricks are falling. Under what purview does that fit? And does that fit into this at all in terms of risk of flooding? Or do we not know?
Like the Charles River watershed.
Well, it would fall under the DPW and the Conservation Commission.
DPW always has, items in their plan to be working at clearing different
They clean the
brooks and
culverts,
culverts, yeah.
Because they're the ones that usually come to the conservation, come to us when it's on the conservation. They would come to us.
So it is a continuous focus.
So looking at dates out into January.
Who'll be the first?
Surprised you didn't offer December 25th. That's your usual.
Bah humbug. If we keep to Thursdays, there's the 18th or the 25th.
The
The
18th is home.
18th is MBTA Communities Public Workshop number 2.
What day is that?
The 18th.
Okay.
It's not-
So up in Powers Salt, so I don't think we want to do that. Okay, what's the 11th? What's the 25th? I don't have stuff all over the 25th. 25th looks like a possibility.
There is a home meeting scheduled there too.
On that
It's not-
Thursday as well.
It's just the committee, yeah.
On the 25th.
Yeah, I have it on for the. I'm not sure why this showing that.
Something has to be
Before,
some
the
reading, Thursday
18th
night.
is the 25th. That must be it. Yeah, because we're
You're
coming
doing
up.
the 18th and the 25th, do you think?
That's what the calendar's showing here. I'm not,
Maybe you're
I
gonna
see
debrief
Hone on
from
the
the
25th.
workshop.
too.
yeah,
Maybe you're gonna debrief from the
Yeah.
workshop. That could be,
yeah.
okay.
And then we're coming up to when we have to send it over to the state.
So there's nothing magical about us having to have it in January if we want to push into February.
KLA, want their final.
No, that's a good point.
I guess can we do it on the 11th? Did we reject the 11th?
did we?
We could do that on the
11 works for me.
Could I verify exactly what we are bringing to the town meeting to vote on? What exactly would we be bringing to the town meeting to vote on in May? The whole plan is.
On the committee?
Yeah. we
No,
bringing
this isn't,
anything to them?
the roadmap doesn't go to town
I
meeting.
thought there was something going to town meeting, not that I know the solar, but I thought there was something else.
No, there was one of the actions where I think it was Pace.
Pace would have to go to town.
And then we
Yeah.
decided,
So there's
Oh, we
nothing.
aren't doing pace.
Okay.
so everything that's in that roadmap goes through its standard process, whatever that standard process is for that action. But the plan itself is more of a roadmap. Nobody has to,
It's an outreach, ultimately it's an outreach tool, not a
it's an outreach
planning tool.
tool, it's an organizational tool, it's a aspirational tool.
So,
I guess the question is, would we be ready on the 11th, right? To go back through what we just looked at tonight with having the chairs of those different working groups take another look through it. We would have kind of a marked up version with what we talked through tonight, with where we think we're putting our green things for 2025. And
So
just
in
take one
other
last
words,
run through that.
homework. The homework
Homework.
is everybody has to come back with marked up page.
I think that the 11th is a good, it's 4
And that way it
weeks.
would be ready to go to KLA, I think. That's the real
I think
thing, right?
that's
We
right.
want
And
it
we will
ready
have
for
gotten
KLA.
the feedback,
Yeah, that's
from
the
the
thought.
From the
select
select
board
board.
meeting. Should we, yeah, and then from our internal teams.
Well, I know it's gonna come back from the natural resources, Starburst.
So, Nick, are you okay with that? With your group, all yours?
So are we only marking up our own?
Yeah, just.
Yes, just your
Yeah,
section.
yeah, that's your homework. If you go beyond that, You get an extra star.
Now you get demerits.
You'll get some merits.
If you comment on someone
Stay in
else's
your lane.
section,
Stay in your lane.
siloed.
Their star over.
Artie, are you good for doing that with your group?
Yeah.
Before the 11th?
That's fine.
And Rachel? Oh, we lost Rachel?
No.
Oh, Rachel's
Other-
I'm
here.
here. Yep, gotcha. Sounds good.
So then I have to just reach out to Joe,
Joe.
and then I guess I have to take Natasha's group.
Yeah,
So on the 11th at 6.
6 P.M.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
Catherine,
I guess we'll have to get back to you on the room location,
Right.
unless Catherine, you can.
I have to look
Look
it
it
up
up. All right.
tomorrow.
Right, so 6 P.M., Jan 11. Goal to have marked up. CAP. All right. Anything else we need to discuss before our final motion of the day? Motion to adjourn. All right,
Second,
okay, we'll go around. Rachel,
Yes, I.
Paul? Paul?
Yeah.
Yes. Nick?
Hi.
Keith? Kevin?
yes.
Artie?
Yes.
Mary Ann?
Yes.
Maureen? Just making up names at this point. All right, the chair votes yes, so we are adjourned.
All right.
Thank you.
Good holiday, everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, very much so.
So now you can vamp